Hello and welcome back to the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. We have an awesome episode slated for you guys today. It kind of popped up, full transparency, out of nowhere. We had a guest scheduled. That guest came down with like some sort of flu bug, COVID, who knows these days. And I was walking through the parking lot at Squatch Fitness after a community workout, and I saw a friend of mine who I know has a pretty interesting story. And I asked her, like, hey, do you know of anyone, or would you like to come on and try to rip it here in like 45 minutes? And she's like, I can't, but that guy over there, like, go talk to him, Coach Bray. And so I decided to go over and hit him up and, took a shot my shot. And Coach Bray said, absolutely, dude, 1 o'clock, let's rip. So Coach Bray is our guest today. Coach Bray is an entrepreneur. He's the leader of something I really want to get into today, or founder, leader of Men in the Arena. I really want to talk about that. I think that that's so important, what you've created there and what you're building. But he's a lot of things with a big story, and we're just excited that he's here today to share it.
Let's go. Well, I appreciate you having me. I'm in this current part of life where I've gone through some internal struggle to start the year, and I've reframed it, and it kind of my theme for January has been embody. And just stepping in and not living in fear. Like previous versions of myself was like, yo, I just did this. I led this class this morning. I was around the community workout. Let me go do some yoga nidra real quick and like recharge. And I was like, that to me is living in the little passive existence in fear. And I want to flow. I'm in a place of flow, and I have things that I want to share and talk about. And I see this as God's divine timing of saying like, hey man, take this opportunity to speak with the man Trip. Because I've overheard your podcast as I shared prior to this, and I really appreciate how you hold space and navigate conversations. And so I felt like this is going to be a great conversation.
For sure, man. And God doesn't make mistakes.
Exactly.
Everything's for a reason and has purpose behind it. And I knew as soon as Danielle, shout out Danielle, was like, go talk to him. I was like, all right, well, that's what's supposed to happen today. The guest was supposed to get sick, and I was supposed to talk to him, and we were supposed to have a conversation and get to know each other. So yeah, no issues. I'm pumped about it.
Let's go.
Yeah, man. So to kick it off and get the audience kind of familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of backstory as far as like where you were born, where you were raised, a little bit of childhood stuff?
Yeah, born and raised in Indiana. I'm a Midwest boy. Grew up, so my mom had me when she was 20. It was not planned. I share that because my parents were not together, so they never got together after I was born. And eventually had a stepdad at the age of 5 and had my own turmoil there. And my dad was here and there. And then once I got into wrestling, which was something that he was passionate about, I wrestled since I could walk. And I grew up racing dirt bikes, which was my stepdad's thing. So wrestling and dirt bikes. But never had a real strong relationship and never felt like I had a great like male role model, which is something that we'll talk to probably later in regards to Men in the Arena. Fast track, after I was, into always want to be a part of the party scene, and I was always kind of exploring and had different friend groups. And once I went to college, ended up joining a fraternity, and pretty much had no sense of like professionalism and how to look at college. And of course, 18, 22 years old, but like I didn't go there to learn. I went to the party, and that was what I got. I got a degree in partying and social skills, which I love those social skills that I attained. But what I also attained was no sense of like meaning in life, of something that was real. And that left me to the age of 22, 21 of still having a semester left of college, and all my friends had graduated, got these corporate gigs, and started the comparison model to where I hit my first bout of depression. And we can get into the details of that, but just to get the quick, how I got here, there's 2 years of where I was navigating a lot and not, playing with the thoughts and the emotions of what it would feel like to not be here anymore and not have to face what I was feeling. And then eventually, I joke, I listened to E.T. the hip hop preacher. I don't know if you know who that is. He's known as like the top motivational speaker in the world. But anyways, if you've ever heard like be a lion, don't be a gazelle, that's him. And it like sparked something in me, and then I went down this path of health and wellness. And then
Eric Thomas.
Okay,
yeah, okay.
And then I've been on the path of health and wellness ever since, and that's has got me to where we're at today. Obviously, there's a lot of trials and tribulations through there, but that's where we're at today.
No, I love that, man, and that kind of gives a great overview, and there's a lot to dive into.
For sure.
The first connection that I see amongst us is kind of the interesting upbringing scenario, if you will. My dad left when I was 5. He was never around a ton from 0 to 5. He was traveling for work, doing his thing, if you know what I'm saying, chasing women probably, not being faithful to my mom, whatever. But he left when I was 5, and my stepdad came in when I was 10. And I was, on the other hand, really fortunate that I got to kind of get a picture of both ends, or the polarity of both ends of that spectrum of really good man and maybe not so good man. And the really good man happened to be my stepdad. He led by example. He kind of carved a path without telling me what to do. It was kind of one of those things like, just watch me and come along as you can, sort of things. And I can appreciate it now. When I was younger, I'm kind of like, do I follow this dude? What's going on? I don't know this guy. It's, so it's confusing, but it's interesting you brought up that you kind of followed 2 passions that were directly correlated to the 2 men in your life. It's such an obvious thing when you look back at it. We don't see it when we're growing up. We're just kind of following those paths. And for me, it was a very split path. Path A was my dad, which his whole pursuit was athletics, women, drinking. Like, those were his 3 things. And I felt like in order for him to be close to me or care about me or be proud of me, I needed to pursue those things. Obviously, the women and drinking wouldn't come till later as a young child, but the athletics came almost immediately. It gave me purpose. I tell everyone it was my first form of therapy. When the whistle blew, it was blank, and it was just go as hard as you can. And half the time I wouldn't even hear the whistle blow again. They'd be pulling me off of kids or like telling me to stop. And no one realized it at the time, but like, there's probably an issue there, right? That kid, he's got some pent up rage, for lack of better words. Like, he needs to talk to somebody, but it was not that. It was always celebrated. Like, that kid goes hard, man. Flip side of that coin, my stepdad, man of faith, first man of true faith I believe I ever knew. And probably to this day, the strongest man in his faith, almost annoyingly so. If I call him with a challenge, it's like, God's got it, man. You're going down the wrong path. God's got it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. And I'm like, dude, my brain, I haven't gotten there yet. My brain's still like, but I struggle in that. But he's always led from that direction. And he's also led from a business perspective, an entrepreneurial perspective. He's done well for himself, but he's built it all brick by brick through work ethic. And so he kind of gave me those gifts, and I'm trying to lean more into that side now. It took me till I was 30 years old to get to that point. But that's kind of the correlation I see. Do you see yourself like, and obviously you kind of said it, but do you think you pursued motocross because of your stepdad and wrestling solely because of your dad?
You know what's interesting? I said that, and when you asked about like your story, like, I'm picking and choosing what I want to share that maybe flows within this conversation, and I chose those, which was, I've never outwardly said that, which is very interesting. But based off the work I've done and like the education I'm continuing to pursue as I want to be a leader for men's health and helping other men, like it all makes sense. But I personally haven't like said those words to make that connection. But until recently. So with my dad, real quick, and I'll get to your question. Yeah. He got my mom pregnant, and 3 months later got someone else pregnant. It was not with her either. And he was a partier, and he is now a man of faith and has done a lot of work. I'm very proud of him. But even in that journey, and then he got married when I was probably 8 or 10, and then I have now 2 little brothers as well. And one of my little brothers is now like a savage runner. So I love when I go back because we get to connect and run, because my other siblings are not into as much of health and wellness. And he shared with me this past Christmas. He's like, you had it, the way he said it, he didn't really like, he said it from his perspective. He's like, you had it lucky or something like that. Like, I was a runner, like Dad likes wrestling. So I didn't get him, and he wasn't as involved till he saw that I was like actually becoming good. And then he got involved. But because wrestling was his thing. And until like, and it was just cool seeing that from my little brother and sharing his perspective. It was like, oh, like, I see how from this role model, being our father, he wanted to, lead with what he felt comfortable with. And if I'm going to switch and look from his perspective, and wrestling was his passion. And until like you got good at it, then he got into running and stuff like that. To come back to your question, like, now like sitting with it, and being young and being malleable, like, of course, like I want to be seen, when you have parents who aren't together, and you don't have like that security, that masculine figure in your life to hold you stable, then things are going to go disarray. The more I understand how men work, like we need that foundation. We need to know that we are safe so we can operate and not put it on these masks and be confident. But if you don't have that male role model in your life consistently that can be there for you, to show up for you, then like you're going to be reaching for all these different things. No,
that totally answers it. And I think we're going to dive deeper into the foundation for men as we move through this. The other thing you brought up was your first bout with depression.
Yeah.
I'd love to dive into that if you're cool with it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Because again, this is one of those topics that people don't really like talking about or hearing about, but it's real.
Yeah.
And, I've struggled with it as well, even recently. And it's almost like the best way I could describe it to someone who hasn't experienced it, or if they're unsure if they've experienced it, what it feels like to me is an unrelenting thought or pressure that I can't escape. And people will be like, pray about it, go for a run, go lift weights, read a book, do the things you love. And I promised in my soul I will lean into all of those things, and it's still with me.
Yeah.
That's what depression is to me. That's what it feels like. It feels like something I cannot escape.
It's a weight.
It's just this, you're just carrying it.
Yeah.
And something we do as men is we show up to these things, and no one, like this community workout this morning, I can assure you that no one was like, dude, that guy's having a hard time.
Yeah.
Like I showed up, I put out, you know what I mean? I slapped hands, I introduced myself, but underneath all of that was like, fuck, heavy. You know what I mean? And I think that we move through life doing that a lot. And I think that's why a lot of people honestly lose their lives. That's what almost bit me, dude. And it's because we couldn't talk about it or didn't feel like we could open up about it. And honestly, this podcast has become therapy for me too. I have a therapist I see regularly. And that's great. That's wonderful. But this has also become a massive form of therapy for me, because if there's something, it's crazy when I have a guest on, it's almost like whatever their story is or whatever they're coming in to really talk about and dive into, I'm in that moment. And that's been beautiful to me. But I want to dive into your story as it pertains to depression, because they don't all look the same and they don't all feel the same. And I'm hoping that maybe your version of depression can connect with somebody else that's different from my form.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important, I think, to talk about in the depths of it. So your first awareness of depression, like what age was that again? And do you remember, was there a trigger into it? Was it slow? How did it come?
Well, first I just want to say, I see you. It's, as you said, it's not easy. It's not conditioned for us to be able to open up and express ourselves and let these emotions that are weighing us down to pour out. And this is therapy. Like, as you're saying this, and then you said it, it's therapy. This is the therapy that we need in terms of being around men, to allow other men to see us and like be confident to just put that out there without judgment, like, and not any expectations. Like, they can be like, oh, this guy's a pussy, right? They can say he's soft. It doesn't matter. Like, the fact that you are having the courage to like speak to those things, or other men, like, that is the power. And one of the most, to me, like, when we get into like the work, like, is the most number one top of the pecking order in terms of being able to combat depression. To answer your question, 22, I had mentioned not graduating, and I had a month. I've graduated college, Indiana University, but had a month left and went back to live with my parents. And that was already, since I was a kid, I was always trying to run away. Like, that's the energy. Like, I was just trying to explore and get out. And like, going back home was already like putting me in this very just unsafe environment. That's what it felt like for my body. It felt like it just didn't feel good. And then I was a criminal justice major, and I wanted to get a job, and I like had this soft goal of being in the FBI one day. So the pathway to that is multiple different pathways, but the path I was going to go down is like I worked in a prison, essentially is what I'm gonna get to, but prison, cop, and then, keep my work way up through the criminal justice system, which is crazy to say. At 22, I worked in a max prison for 6 months at night shift, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. In a very toxic environment. Not even much the prisoners, but the people who work in places like that. And already, you're in the health and wellness space. Working night shifts is just not good for the human body either. And started picking up dipping, tobacco, had this 45-minute drive from my parents' house to the prison. And it was just it was like a hospital cycle in terms of work. I can't remember exactly the work shift, but it was like that, like 3 to 4 days a week. And already brewing up inside me, just having to be there. If I backtrack a little bit, and with my major, I felt like at that time, and a lot of young men do this, but I didn't really take the time to think about what I wanted from life. And what that foundation, what that creates is a man without purpose, and a man without purpose is very scary. And yes, I'm young, and this is where I was internally in the moment. This is what I was processing, and as I've reflected more, I see that's what was happening and what was brewing, and I wasn't facing my challenges. I kept shying away, being passive, living in fear, not believing myself. And then once you get into that lane, you're driving down that street. Things just start stacking on top. And as you said, it doesn't go away. It just gets worse. The analogy I've described over time, it's literally like I'm in the water and I'm just putting these weights on top of me, and I'm like it's pulling me underwater, and I'm trying to get a breath of air, then it's pulling me back under, and then eventually I'm just like, it gets to the feeling like I don't want to fight anymore. Like, I'm not trying to swim. I'm not a swimmer. Like, I just want to give up. And I would sit daily driving, and like I had different coping mechanisms, but I would be driving down the road, and it's like it'd be so easy just to turn right into the median. And I'm in those moments, my family was the thing that I would come back to, and how that would make them feel. And I have no anyone who lives with that choice, like because I've been so close, like I feel them, like I know it, it really got to the point where just not having the purpose and those things stacking on top and living at home with my parents, I then found health and wellness. Eric Thomas sparked something in me, started working out, started eating better, started prioritizing my health. That switched my internal energy. There's still so many bouts of depression that happen over the next, where I'm at. This is 10 years ago. But it's the tools and the things I've developed over time have helped me to come back. And I'll share a couple more just bouts of depression because it makes sense in this where we're going. Even recently, January of this year, I was sharing I was in a heavy position, something as an entrepreneur and someone as I do have men in the arena, and I identify as a community builder, as a title that doesn't pay me. It's a title that I feel I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And I share that not pay me because I haven't been as proactive and I don't want to get too much into this, but of just being financially stable. And as a man, that is something that also, like, I've had judgment and a shame and towards, and I go through these ebbs and flows of, let me hustle, make money. Okay, now I'm good. Like, let me just get by. I don't need that much money to do my next thing. I want to focus on my brand. I'm going to build my brand. I'm going to do a podcast. I want to do, like, I don't want to have to make money. Like, I hate making money. That's the internal thing. And it gets to the point where this January, 32, 33, I want to have a partner. I want to do these things. I want to travel the world and build my brand continuously. And I had this I've experienced burnout before. And I've experienced depression at 22. And I've never experienced quite what I was feeling at the end of this year going into this year, how heavy I felt, because I was so ashamed of where I was as a businessman, as a successful man, as a man who's doing all these things, and people will come to me and it's so much good energy, and I'm very grateful, but internally I'm in this war with myself, because I haven't learned from when I was 22 of not facing some of these challenges. And it took me really, and I put this on social media, so I'm with you. I share the dark as well as much as I can. I shared like I needed to accept where I'm at. Because if I can't accept where I'm at and have love for who I am right now, that doesn't create a foundation of growth. And that's where the growth as a man, what happens if you keep, and this is where therapy can be dangerous sometimes too, if we keep reliving the past and we're in this pattern loop of emotions, then it feels like it's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. So I had to accept, and then I have a close friend, Yush, that I was able to express where I'm at today. And I choked up as I was expressing it because it was hard for me to accept. And he knows my situation and he knows me very well, but it was still hard for me to do because I have pride. I'm a man. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to ramble too much on these things, but the second thing, so my birthday is May 5th, and in 2023, I got a call from my grandpa, thinking I was getting a call to wish me happy birthday. He told me that my cousin at the age of 21 took his life on my birthday. So immediately, I didn't know how to respond, and I say immediately, but as I processed that over the time, the past years, it's a constant reminder that like I'm supposed to be in this position of supporting men, because every year my birthday, which is a year to celebrate life, and I choose to celebrate his life, I need to be strong. Yeah. But even from that place of thinking like that, I put this pressure to do these things and show up. And the reason I share this now is because this beginning of the year, I sometimes with all the men in the group, I'm like, yo guys, like you need to flex this muscle. Like I promise you, you're okay. You're in a safe, flex this muscle. And I've been very open and sharing on different things, but in this regard, I was holding back because I felt I need to be strong. I need to be strong for the men. I can't show this chink in my armor. And that was crushing me, of not feeling seen and being able to understand that, hey, I'm fighting out here. I'm fighting out here for y'all. And I need support too. So being able to express that is not easy. Yeah. But that's where the work comes in. And since 2021, when Cameron, my cousin, took his life. And 2022, my birthday was rough. I hid from the world again. I got COVID, I think like right around that time as well. And it was very dark. And then ever since then on my birthday, I launched my podcast when I did a podcast in 2023 on my birthday, and Men in the Arena. And then last year did a couple other things I launched, and I have some things lined up for this year as well. So choosing to make that day as much vibrant, full of life force energy as possible.
Yeah, man, that's powerful for so many reasons. There, again, as you tell your story, there's it's wild to me the connections that exist. My original goal, my major was criminal justice. I wanted to be a federal agent. I didn't care, like U.S. Marshals, DEA, FBI.
Yeah, I didn't care which one either. I say FBI, but yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's what I want. And oddly enough, I had to take like 6 semesters of a language to do that. And I got through like 5 of them. In the 6th one, like I just couldn't do a 30-minute presentation in Spanish. There was just no way. And so I ended up having to switch and picked up a minor in justice studies, and I ended up getting a degree in education. And but there was a massive feeling of loss for me once I graduated, because I'm like, wait, I can't fucking do anything. Like, I got arrested twice in college. I have this, at that time, a pretty significant drinking problem.
Same. I got arrested twice as well.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, and I'm going to be a drunk and a cop? Like, okay, you hear those stories all the time. I don't want that to be me. I'm going to be the teacher that's always fucked up. Like, no, that's not going to work. So I didn't really know what to do. And that was a dark time for me as well. The other thing that you said in there that is the realest shit, I think, and it hit me in the gut when you said it, because this has happened to me a ton. And even, like, I hate to admit this, but recently, like the driving down the road thing. Deion Sanders actually tells a story about this when he was in the prime of his career, playing for the Cincinnati Reds, Atlanta Falcons, making plenty of money, all the women in the world, living this from the outside dream lavish lifestyle. And he talks about this emptiness, and he's like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter how much money I made, how many women were around. He's like, I could have 8 women in the bed, like nothing. And he's like, he drove off the road. He was after a game one day. He's like, I think I went 3 for 4 that day, like coming up on a contract that they were getting ready to pay me like crazy. And he's like, I was driving down the road listening to Kirk Franklin. And he's just like, God, I'm done. I don't want to do it another minute. And he literally drove his car off the road. And he's like, the car came to a stop. And he's like, he was still alive. And he was sitting there, and Kirk Franklin's still playing. And he said this cop pulled up. And the cop was like, what's going on? You know, what happened? He's like, I just wanted to quit. That's what he told the cop. And they told him, you know, media didn't blow it up back then because it's not like now where they just trash people for shit like that. Yeah. He called his agent, and his agent was like, look, you have 2 options. Like, you either get help or, like, you're done playing ball. Like, I'm pulling you out of all this shit. And he got help and leaned into his faith and really rebuilt his life in a different way. But I can't tell you how many times, and it's funny because even in the deepest form of depression, there's so many good people in it. There's still – people think – if someone takes their life, it's selfish. I've heard that a lot. I don't necessarily agree with that completely, and here's why. In the moments I've thought about taking my life, I've never once thought about going into oncoming traffic, hurting somebody else. Yeah. It's like, I'll take that tree. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or like, I'll go off that bridge.
The median.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not, and that's the example I give. Yeah. Do I understand and comprehend that your life, it's a ripple effect and it's going to hurt a lot of people if that were to happen? Like, yeah, everyone who, I don't want to say everyone, I don't want to overgeneralize, but most people who take their life, I think, understand that. Yeah. But it gets to a point where it's like, it doesn't matter anymore.
Can't handle it.
I cannot handle it. I can't tell you how many times I've hit my knees and just my face on the floor, praying to God, like, take it. Whatever it is, take it. I've asked God to kill me because I can't do it. I've been like, just do it, man. Like, send a bus my way. I'm not mad about it. I understand, you know, because and I think it's so common. I truthfully do, because outside of this podcast, there's been so many people reach out and be like, fuck, dude, like, I was there yesterday, or I'm there today, or I was there last week. It's everywhere. And the names that pop up aren't like always just Joe Blow the mechanic, bro. It's like business owners, CEOs, founders, like people that from the outside looking in, massive success. Mm-hmm. But none of that matters if you're struggling in here. It doesn't. It's like, you might get a dopamine hit. Like, yeah, if somebody hands me $1 million, that might feel good. I could do some shit with that. But it doesn't fix anything. And I try to convey that to people that are chasing a bag, right? Mm-hmm. Like chasing this or chasing that. None of that shit matters.
It's all external.
Yeah, unless you got it up here. Mm-hmm. And that's been my biggest battle, is trying to find a way to get it up here. And it's been really hard without drugs and alcohol, bro, because that was such a, and I hate to like put drugs and alcohol on a pedestal ever, but man, it was an easy escape. Mm-hmm. It was so simple. Like, pressure got too high. It was like, all right, I can
numb it out.
Yeah, I can back this off a little bit, bro. Like, let me let this valve open up, get back to baseline. And, you know, the drugs and alcohol while using were never the problem for me. It was when I stopped every time, you know, and it got to a point where that anxiety and shame and depression was heavier than what I was feeling without it. And I think that's what helped me stop. But that's a different conversation we'll jump into in a little bit. I didn't mean to get sidetracked.
You're good.
There's just a lot.
I resonate with all of it. So
there's just so much there.
Yeah.
Right. And people will be like, oh, well, like you see this shit all the time. Well, if you're depressed, like, go for a run, get in the sunshine, eat healthy, surround yourself with confident people. I'm like, bro, I do that fucking 16 hours a day. I can go run, like, and work out and be around good people and still feel completely isolated and alone if my head's not good. And so you can't just always fix it. Sometimes it's got to run its course. And that's the hardest part, is like, you don't know where the finish line is at. I could feel better today, but it might be a month. I don't fucking know.
Can I share something real quick?
Yeah.
I think what I've observed within myself, but just and reading different books around masculinity and understanding and seeing, you know, this conversation right here and what you've experienced, men are designed to go through the shit. Like, we were built to go through it. I think if we were to hypothesize like the difference between now and previous times is there's too much separation and isolation, and we can get the role models are another thing too, but we're not working with each other, because we were designed to go through the shit because it hardens us so we can be the man that we need to be. It's like the phoenix rising out of the fucking ashes. Like we're designed to go through the struggle. Like we don't want to shy away from the struggle. Women, different. Women going through that, we go through that for them. Mm-hmm. Women going through that hardens them, and that it pushes them away from people and men specifically. It can harden their divine, feminine, when they go through hard things, and they may go through hard things. And we live in a different world that's kind of evolving, where women are also becoming breadwinner, and that's a whole nother conversation that can also play into men's health as well. That I've done a lot of research in, but to just comment what I initially said, it's like we can't shy away from the things that are scaring us, and we can't shy away from the problems. And Men in the Arena, in our mission statement, is bringing men together to step into the arena, and the arena is the challenges, the obstacles, the adversaries, the struggle. Could be physical, could be spiritual, could be mental, could be emotional. So we can emerge after stepping into the arena, facing our challenge. We can emerge as better men. Better men it could be healthy masculine qualities. It's more open-ended, like whatever better means for you. And the one thing that I shared beginning of the year with Men in the Arena is like and this is another perspective point on like the challenges, like it's good that there's things that we have to face, because if there wasn't these things, the opposite end of the spectrum, life would be really freaking boring. We would be so restless. You see it with men who retire, right? You see it with men who lose their wives at in the 60s and 70s, and they it shows data that they pass away soon after because they lose their purpose of growth. So it's like we have, like, we were designed to go and put our energy, our life force, our masculinity into things, but we've been put into a box of society that, in school system, there's so many things you can go down that have not allowed us to express that, or we didn't have role models that could show us the way and help us find those things, the rites of passages. There's no rites of passages anymore, right, to becoming a man. So because you're not in touch with that, and now you're in this world where you're trying to discover and do these things, but then you're also trying to hustle and make money. And then you're also trying to have like strong, you want to have a romantic partner. Then it's just, it becomes hard because you're doing it alone. And I do believe I love Teddy Roosevelt. I do believe in individualism. No one's going to do the freaking work for you. But I think the messaging that I want to continue to empower and fucking magnify throughout the whole world is you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Like if you, and that, just saying that and just embodying and feeling what that feels like makes it feel like, oh, I'm not the only one thinking these things. That was like, if I would go back and like I did I don't really, like, when I first got into public speaking, I used to be really scared, like even doing shit like this, but like it's part of the growth that I've been on. But I did a talk about like my truths that I developed, and a few of them that I think are powerful is avoidance equals suffering. And that's what I experienced. I was avoiding like making the big decisions on my life. And because I was avoiding those things and not facing, it was creating this internal turmoil, suffering within me. The other one is that we are the most adaptable species ever to walk this freaking planet, which is a powerful thing, empowering thing to think about. That if we can adapt to the times, when there's all these things getting thrown at us, technology, advancement, AI, like it can be nerve-wracking. Oh fuck, I'm falling behind, or maybe I want to go to the man that you explained earlier, where it's kind of just they're in their own world. They're not focused on these other things. That would be easier sometimes, right? And not have to like play the game that we're playing. And then the other one is like there's so many other people that have the same thoughts as us. Just as you shared, like me sharing my story. Hopefully this can connect with somebody. But I like embodying like truths for myself, because if those are things that are ingrained in you at some level, you can redefine truths, and a lot of life is unlearning some of the poor things we learned in our childhood. But I think having these hardline truths and values of who you are as as a man and like how you experience the world allow you to kind of filter when those negative really thought patterns start creeping through. You're still a freaking human being. Like I've done all this work and I still went through the shit beginning of this year, but because of all these other avenues and growth I've done and these truths that I've developed, I knew there was never a thought that I was going to end my life. I had some thoughts of like potentially just moving to Costa Rica and giving up in that lens, but it didn't get to and there's thoughts of the darker side as well, but it wasn't as strong. That voice wasn't near as strong as it was when I was 22, 26, 28. It's not as strong. And I think this is a long-winded like thing, but I wanted to share. One thing, the last thing I want to say is like with men in the arena, and we can, if you want to pivot to talking about that. Yeah. It's my baby. It's it's tattooed on my arm. But I created a framework. I didn't want to create core values, like every business has core values. I didn't want to create that. It didn't really make sense. I wanted to create a framework so men can identify their own core values. And it's structured in a way where the first thing is like, what does it mean to step into the arena? Like, what does it mean to face your challenges and all? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that feel in your body? Like, what are the characteristics? Is it courage? Is it strength? Is it confidence? Like, what are the things that really resonate with you and where you are in life too? Because you can come back to the framework and it could be a certain struggle that you're facing right now. What does it mean to face that struggle? What does it feel like? What are the feelings that come in your body? And then the second step is like, the second step is like, who are you fighting for when you're there? Like, what is it? Like, what is the why around that? Like, why is it so important to you? Why is it built up inside you that it has such this intrinsic value? Like, why? And then the last one, sorry, it's actually vice versa. The second one is like, how are you showing up? Why you're there? Like, are you a heart-centered leader? Are you trying to lift other people around you? Are you coming with positive energy? Are you like, what's that version of you that is like when you're standing in the arena, in the Coliseum or whatever freaking challenge, like, how are you showing up as a man? And the last one is, who are you fighting for? Like, are you fighting for your brothers? Are you fighting for yourself? Are you fighting for your family? And like just going through that loop of those things and like because I've gotten to a point where I'm at today where every decision that I make, Trip, I'm literally putting it through that. Like, am I a man in the arena? Am I not confident or strong enough to step into the arena and face whatever freaking gladiator or thing that's creating my depression? Am I not being strong enough, or am I like allowing the passiveness or the softness inside me to come through? And that's okay if that's the case, because we're like big men cry too. Like, it's okay to do those things and let those things on. But I find the more that we don't face, if we're playing a game or however analogy you want to write up in your head, if we're not facing that warrior that's battling against us, our own self, then it's gonna be a harder challenge to face as life goes on. And then you're just gonna throw the swords down and I don't want to fight anymore. And that's where, the word giving up, this is another reason why I compete, because I think competing is the opposite of giving up. I love competition. I love testing myself. But I'll stop that long-winded.
No, you're great, man. There's a lot to talk about there. We'll work backwards, actually.
Yeah.
So the competition piece.
Yeah.
I think there's two things that have kept me alive, genuinely. I think it's my drive to push my body. I think that's kept me alive because there's something, I think for a man especially, I can't speak for women, that's so impactful when you can see growth. Yep. Right? Like, that's why I loved construction. You show up, you bust your ass. At the end of the day, you look back at the building, it looks different. You made an impact, right? Okay, let's come back tomorrow. Physical fitness has kind of been a lot like that for me too. It's like there's always just, and sometimes it's very small, but there's growth. And I think that's kept me alive. And then the other thing that's kept me alive, which you talked a lot about in that segment, is your why. In those moments where I've wanted to veer off the road, what stops me? Is it fear of dying? No, that doesn't scare me. I made peace with that July 19, 2020. There's an ounce of me that's afraid to die. I'm ready. Like, if God calls me right now, let's go.
I feel that.
What keeps me here is, and it's shifted over the years, but now it's these kids that that I get to go talk to back home. I just got into the public speaking world and got an opportunity last year to go home and talk to these kids and middle schoolers, high schoolers. And we ended up talking to every school in the Valley, like over 10,000 kids.
That's awesome, man.
And the messages I get from them, the handwritten letters, and the things that I told them in those speeches, right? Like, don't ever fucking quit. Don't ever fucking quit. You're here for a reason. You have to keep going. Like, let God sort that shit out, you know? And so when I'm in those moments, that's where I go. And I'm like, what kind of man, right? Truthfully, what kind of man that leads by example falls to that when he's spoken this into children, right? Those kids are looking up to you. Those kids are reaching out to you. Some of those kids might depend on your message in order to keep fighting. Are you really going to fucking quit? And that has saved my life over the course of this last year on multiple occasions. And I think when we talk about men specifically, if you're struggling right now with anything, I would say the most important thing you can do is find a fucking why. Something. It doesn't matter, like whatever it has to be today, but it has to be something. And if it's you, great. If it's your dog, great. If it's, anything, like just go fucking find it and attach to it. Because as men, I genuinely think most men that lose their lives, whether it be to forcible overdose, suicide, however it goes, we'll never probably get to have those conversations with them, obviously. But I would love to ask, did you have a purpose in that moment? And I'm willing to bet that the majority of the answers would be like, nah, man, there's nothing left.
Yep.
There's no purpose. And so if you're struggling, I think that's the most critical, important piece. And that's why I love what you're doing with men in the arena. Because I think what it really, and I know it's not like your core statement, but what it represents to me is let me help men find their way, their purpose. And that's a beautiful fucking thing and people ask me, well, how do I find my purpose? And I only have one good answer for that, and it's only worked for me. I don't know if it applies to anyone else. I found my purpose in the darkest of struggles. Yeah. The scary part is if you go that deep and you don't find that purpose, that might be it. That's a terrifying thought. But that's where I found mine. And if I lose purpose, this sounds masochistic on some level, but I just go break myself off. And then I remember. I'm like, oh yeah, this is why we do this shit. My dad overdosed in September 2023. That shifted everything in my life. I've been sober over 3 years, dude. Like, I'm so proud. Like, I'm building my businesses. Life's good. I'm dating around, having a good time. I bought a house. Like, hell yeah, we've really flipped this like addict thing on its head. Dad dies. And dude, I really didn't even cry that much. I've had a lot of things in my life happen that hurt more, if that makes sense. But I don't think there's ever been anything that gave me more. And people be like, damn, what? Like that was a gift. And like, yeah, it sounds fucked up, but it was. It got me to the podcast. It got me into public speaking. It got me deeper in my therapy journey. I've shared this before, but the darkest thing that happened around that time, I was in therapy, working through childhood shit. And the therapist is like, look, man, we're going to come up with a plan so you can approach your father and really deep, like you guys can have a conversation, man. Because we were friends. That's what it really felt like. We were buddies, not father, son. If he'd have told me what to do ever, I'd have laughed at him. Like, it wasn't like that.
I feel that.
Yeah. I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, yeah, you stay over there. And so we were working through this plan in therapy, and we'd worked through the whole thing, man. And my therapist is like, look, I want you to call your dad when you leave here today. I want you to have a conversation with him and see if he's open, now that we've built this plan, to sitting down man to man and having this talk about your childhood. He's like, I think this is going to really unleash some shit for you to be able to set that free. And he's like, if he's open to it, great. We'll crystallize it, and then you can go do it. And I said, awesome. He's like, but call him and see if he's open. So I got out of therapy, got on my phone before I even got to my truck, call him. I'm like, hey, man, like, been working through some shit in therapy. I was just calling to see if you'd be open to sitting down and having a conversation about my childhood and like working through that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, man, let's do it. That was on a Tuesday. They found him dead Thursday. No conversation.
That's wild.
Right.
Open the door and then the door closed forever.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's the only word I have for it. Excuse my French. I've said it a few times on here today, but fuck it. Like that's what I felt. Fuck. But what it gave me was this, like it's almost insatiable, like drive and fire. Just like fuck. And to know that he overdosed on my drug of choice. I didn't even know he had a drug problem, dude. I'm reading his death certificate, same name. It's like I'm reading my own shit, right? It unleashed this beast inside of me, man. And I think that's what the therapist was talking about. That conversation, and again, over time, I've learned to just trust in God and what he's doing. And dude, it sucks sometimes. Like there's times I'm like, dude, what are you really doing? Like this makes no sense. But the therapist even told me, I called him right away after I got that call. And it was late at night. He's like, what's going on? Like, I've never called him before, you know what I mean, outside of office hours. And I tell him, and he was like this deep breath. And he just goes, he's like, you're not going to want to hear this, but you weren't meant to have that conversation. He's like, something else is going to come out of this. Just sit there, sit with it. He's like, if you need me, call me back. So I said, okay. And I started to sit in it, you know, and really sit in it. Just like, here we are. This is what happened. These are the facts. This is where we're at right now. And started praying about it, like vigorously. And it wasn't even a month after that. I got baptized again. I was at a Bible study, and someone said something about baptism. I was like, I fucking do it right now. I'm ready. And I did it in a swimming pool at Bible study, dude. Got baptized 10/10/23.
I love it.
And
it was the date you shared earlier, right?
Yeah. So he passed September 7th, 2023.
Okay.
I got baptized 10/10/23. So just over a month. And probably a week after that, a conversation happened around starting a podcast to tell these stories. A lot of my family wasn't happy about that shit, right? It's like, they don't want to bring more shame. You've already done enough. I'm like, fuck that. Like, if I can help one person's brother, father, son, uncle, cousin, if I got to put myself out there every day, like strip it all away, and it helps one person, I'll do it every single time.
No mass.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's really led me to this belief, this deep-seated belief that the most impactful form of male security and masculinity is true rawness and vulnerability. Here the fuck I am.
Amen.
What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need? I'm here. I can't end it. It's all gone. I can't stop it. I can't end it. I've thought about it a million times, but that's in God's hands. So like, what do you need from me? Because there must be something I'm here for. That's what keeps me coming back, dude. What if I don't show up today? Like, I didn't want to come to that community workout today. I promise you. Fuck that. It's not my thing. I show up to Squatch in the mornings. I go run. I don't talk to anybody. I get my lift in. I don't really talk to anybody. I leave and go home. Someone's like, nah, dude, go to the community workout today. Go to the community workout today. Well, that's why we're sitting here. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, look, at the end of the day, where we fuck up most as humans and men, I think, is trying to create this pathway where we're not exposed and we don't want to open up, where really I think our destiny and who we are as men and what it should be is, I should, like, men, any man that passes me should know, like, I can open up to that motherfucker, whatever it is. And he's not going to judge me. He's going to hold space. He's going to give me a hug. He's going to check in. I'm good. How do I create that, right? Like, how do I create that posture? And to do that, and I'm rambling now, but like, this shit gets me fired up.
I love it.
To do that, truthfully, I think what a lot of men need to sit down and realize is this ties into the dating thing, right? Women claim to love the idea of a man who's attached to his emotions and understands his emotions and can convey his emotions appropriately, but can also, you know, show up and be a man and be masculine. I've yet.
They don't want to see that.
Yeah. Huh?
They don't want to see that.
No. I've yet to find a partner where that held true.
Yeah.
I've been called insecure, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, my whole life is on the internet. It's the ultimate form of security. The insecurity is driven by action, right? And probably by my own childhood trauma of me staying in a situation too fucking long and just letting it resonate, thinking, oh, I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. It'll get better. But I tell men this all the time. Don't ever change your frame to fit a dating partner. Mm-hmm. The right partner, the right person, as long as you're building your frame appropriately, it's going to step right into that. Yeah. Every single time. But I've gotten lost in that numerous times where it's like, okay, this is it. And it's truthfully, it's not always it. And that's a total another side tangent, but it's like, there's so much wrapped up in this shit when it comes to like this conversation around being a man and masculinity and what's acceptable and what's not. Yeah. And really where I'm at with it today, the reason I said all that is like, and this might sound harsh or over the top, but kind of like, dude, fuck dating. Really. It's like, maybe I'm just here to help men. Mm. And if that's the case, so be it. I can live with that. If that's God's purpose for me, what a blessing. Right? I'm at peace with it, bro, because the pursuit of anything else at this point, it doesn't feel in alignment with me. Yeah. It just doesn't. And I genuinely believe, like, yeah, I want to be a dad. Yeah, I want to be a husband. That shit's deeply important to me. But the thing that's going to give me those things is staying right on my fucking path and not wavering, not sacrificing, not dropping my standards, not moving. Lock the path. Yep. And that's what I want to convey to men. And I've even made that mistake numerous times. Get off the path a little bit. Next thing you know, like, you're no longer in your purpose and you're no longer happy over here.
Yep. You're in the brush.
Yeah. Lock in on the path, dude.
Yep.
She said it in the community workout this morning. She was talking about like her quote of the year. And I'm going to fuck it up, so forgive me. But it was essentially like, lock in on the vision, be flexible with the path. And I'm sure
that's a very feminine thing to say.
Right. And dude, when she said it, I'm like, I'll just tell you my honest reaction. I was like, man, fuck that. Like, that was in my head. I'm like, vision's locked, path is locked. And that's probably a stubborn thing to say. But that's kind of where I'm at, because my flexibility is a little too flexible, if I'm being honest. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I might stray too far.
Yeah.
Where for me, like, the safe bet is just locked and loaded straight ahead.
What's the addict personality, right?
For sure.
You know, we're all addicts.
Yeah.
And it's very easy. I didn't mean to interject.
Continue. No, you're good, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you shared that I resonate with, and I wanted to backtrack a little bit to there was a study that was done around suicide notes, and what were like the two common words that were seen across suicide notes, and the words were worthless and useless. It just gets back to when you don't have purpose, when you're not using your life force, you're tapping in representing masculinity as within you as a man, and it eats you away from the inside. And it gets to, if a man without purpose, as I said, is very scary. And it's less a problem of men not checking in. It's more of a problem of men checking out and choosing to check out. And the words worthless and useless, just even saying that, like, I've said to myself, I'm sure you have too, in different scenarios. Like, every man listening right now has probably used those words before.
Yep.
And like, there's definitely emotionally chargedness to those words. And the more you give power to those words, the more it's going to bring you down and weigh you down. And I think, and that's where I had my own history of partying and drugs and you know, numbing the pain. I was thankful to get a DWI, my year anniversary. I say thankful because that was my sign from above to get my shit together And since then, like I'll do plant medicine stuff here and there, or mushrooms, and but I don't drink. And I don't wear it as a badge of honor or anything, and I have no judgment towards it. I want to give power to it personally. And if I have a glass of wine at a friend's wedding, I'll have a glass of wine. So it's like, it's not, I like to be a little bit unattached to some things. And I hear what you're saying, because I completely agree in terms of the path and being locked in. And I think on the dating side especially, like it's very easy to lose yourself in a relationship, because I have my younger version of myself. Long story short, my dating life, I haven't dated since I moved here 8 years ago, because I've been on this fucking path.
Right.
Been on this path. And that path was not always clear. Now the path is very fucking clear. But during that path, when I wanted to give up all the things you want to pull to, women, which would lead, okay, there's no women, to masturbation, porn, or it's drugs, or it's alcohol, or for me, I had an eating disorder from my wrestling days, so I'd go to food, even though I'm a high-performing athlete, like I had issues with binge eating.
Yep.
I say all to say that, yeah, like it's easy to say lock in on your path, but it's not easy. And but again, like the perspective situation is, it shouldn't be easy. Right. It shouldn't be easy. It's not designed to be easy. And speaking to the women, like there is like that energy out there, like men or women want to see men be vulnerable. And I completely agree. They don't, they want to know that they're not shying away from it, and they want to know that they're going to spaces where they can express, whether it's therapy or whether it's a men's group, but they don't want to see that.
Right.
They want to see a man that is strong, fucking the world, literally fucking the world, so caught into their purpose and living with that fire inside them, because that's what's in us. It can be very toxic if it's not understood, because then it can get to like me in my early drinking days, I was getting in fights a lot because I had so much rage inside me from whatever childhood trauma and things that were built up and things that I wasn't facing. But now I welcome that fire. Yeah. I welcome that. That tells me I'm alive.
Yep.
Because if that fire wasn't there, then that's when shit gets scary.
Yep.
That's where it gets scary. So I'm super excited for you in terms of speaking with the kids. That is so cool, dude. And I think even from that lens too of how you share, like person listening could potentially, like, there's no shame. Like there's no shame in wanting to take your life. Like it's real. It's real. And like me and you as men who have had some success, have had failures, and in a place where we're vulnerable to talk about this conversation. So it shows how much work we've done, but it's not a bad thing. And like having that shame or judgment towards that, and having shame or judgment, like, oh, like me wanting to take my life is gets back to this being raw and being real. Like it's a part of who you are. And we can't allow those to then spiral us back in the wrong direction.
Crazy interjection. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just had this thought, and it might be totally just wrong, but it was a thought, and I'm known for my intrusive thoughts. So
I love it.
How about this take? This is a hot take. I would be willing to have a conversation around anybody that says that it's truthfully never crossed their mind in any capacity, right? Not saying they formalized a plan or that, they wrote a note, anything like that, but that they say like suicide has never crossed their mind. I'd be willing to have the conversation around, well, they've never truthfully looked at themselves.
Or they're not taking risks.
Right. They're not taking risks. They're not looking at themselves, and they're not being honest. Because that's the shit that hurts. Like I can walk out of here and lie all day long to everybody around me and myself and bury this shit, for days, months, years. I don't want to live that way at all. No. Because that's not freedom. We talk a lot about not just those types of thoughts, but also like.
By the way, that's not a hot take. I agree.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a hot take.
It's just a wild thought. Yeah, I was like, damn. But I was thinking about this too. Because a lot of guys will come to me and be like, hey, man, and these are good men that I know, and they'll ask the questions around, and I've asked these questions too, like, damn, she left me. Like, do you think she thinks about me? Mm. And I'm like, dude, the realest thing I can tell you is I don't know, right now. But if you were a good man, I assure you, I promise you, at some point in time, she's going to be sitting there doing something new partner, whatever, and he's not going to show up in the way that you did as a good man, then it'll hit her. And that's not your problem to carry anymore, right? That's not your burden to carry anymore. You did your part. Grass was greener over there. Go live on that side of the grass then. And I think that that's something so hard for us as men, because we constantly wonder if we've had impact on people, not just in relationships, partnerships, friendships, business stuff. At least the men I'm around do, right? Did I leave a mark? Did I leave an impact? Did I do what I needed to do? And that's also a heavy burden and weight to carry. So there's so much packed into this conversation. It's really hard to even dial it into anything. Because it just feels like it could just like a bomb going off in the floor, and it's like, fuck, I'll just grab all this shit that's flying around. But I do think that there's something to be said with, if someone's genuinely never had those thoughts cross their mind, they're legitimately blocking fucking everything out, and like you said, not taking risks.
I agree with you. There's so much to untangle, and because there's so much work to do. And I think the one thing that I resonate with what you just said is, I think, actually, I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Yeah,
what's coming up for me.
Yeah, send it.
So because of our boy Noah, I am writing a book now. And the book I'm writing is called Into the Arena, a man's path to purposeful living. And when I was doing the research, I'm still doing the research. I'm literally only written the outline, but I've been doing the work for that for years now. So it's really just like getting me to sit down and focus on piecing it together. And I think from the lens of like men in the arena and where we want to go with that and the impact we want to have. Speaking of impact, actually, that's where I was trying to resonate with, was the impact piece. I actually think not all men think that way. I think we're around very select men that think that way, that want to really empower those around you. And something else you said earlier of just like acceptance of like maybe in regards to dating, like this is the work, like that is so freeing. Like just letting go of the need to be seen by a woman and valued by a woman, and just valuing yourself and your purpose. That's what I want to get back to. That, dude, like bring that to the freaking gods. Like that is so powerful, because there's so many men who are just looking for people to see them and people to value them and like have their impact seen, but they're not doing the work on themselves to do it for themselves first.
Right.
They haven't done the inner work first. They haven't gone down the trials and tribulations. They haven't taken the risk. They haven't looked at themselves. And when you're in that place and you're in a relationship, I can speak to my younger version of myself. It wasn't a very good relationship. Not that I was a bad man.
Right.
It just, the relationship had no growth or future because I haven't done the work.
Right.
I haven't done the work. And sometimes it's hard to do that in a relationship because you get comfortable, you get safe. And this world that we live in is designed to, at this point now, because we're not fighting for our food. We're not fighting for shelter. Where it's designed to put us to where we're super comfortable. Yeah. And men, again, we're not supposed to be comfortable. We're not supposed to be comfortable. And that seems scary to say. It's like, man, I just want to kick back, put my feet up, relax. I don't want to have to fight all the time. That's not how we're designed to be. And I keep saying that because I think it's important to comment on. But I think with the comment around, it's so freeing when you are so in touch with who you are, then divine timing, like God will present the woman at the right time, and you have to believe in that. And that's where it gets into the woo-woo and things of that nature, whether you believe in that or not. But at the end of the day, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you aren't doing those things, suicide, those thoughts, all those things are going to start spiraling. So it just comes to you facing the music and facing these challenges head on, so you can be the man in the arena.
Yep.
In regards to the book, just the research, I think the things that I'd be happy to hear your perspective on this, like in terms of the challenges of modern men today. As of right now, life expectancy, the data shows that it's going backwards. And the comparable is like the data was skewed a little bit back in the day because women would die at childbirth. Right. Now the data is skewed because men are dying to suicide and despair and overdose between the age of 20 and 60. And if we were to dissect that problem, like what are the challenges? Like what's got us there, right? And for me, like the things I sit with is the male role models, the rites of passage, This shift, there's this interesting happening and people talking about the shift in like the 70s towards women's rights, and which is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
With you.
But what that has done is created the space where men sometimes they're getting pushed into their feminine. They're getting pushed out of being the breadwinner, and that puts them in this place of loss of like, how do I show up as a man? And you've seen it with like, I'm sure with parents and like how like some women are so in their masculine and kind of being whatever. I don't want to speak to that, but you can see it where men are not in their masculine, and like that is it's just who we are. It's going to start pulling away from you. Mm-hmm. So the breadwinner shift and like the women's rights, the lack of male role models and rites of passages, those are the things that come up for me. Mm-hmm. And not having like, and then the schooling system of not really a good schooling system that help us identify what we were put on this earth to be. I'm curious, like from you, like what are the challenges when it comes to modern men and yourself?
Man, there's a few things in that question that I could dive into. I think first, you brought up women's rights, and I'm in alignment with you. I think it's one of the greatest things we ever did. I think it's important. I think it's so critical. I'm probably like one of the most feminist males that I know. I might not look like it. I might not sound like it, but like I'll go to war for a woman. You know what I mean? Like that's ingrained in me, especially being raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
Like good fucking luck, right? Like ever getting me to turn against a woman. Yeah. Being brought up that way. And so I think it's beautiful we've advanced. But I also think there's some challenges associated with it in that, like, again, there's been this shift of like who's the masculine frame. Yeah. And I think I struggle in that, right? Especially like modern dating. I can speak to that. Like I've never felt insecure around a woman who made more money than I made, because in my brain, and I've said this out loud, like, well, now that I know what you make, I'll just beat it. Mm-hmm. Like that's the addict competitive side of me. Like, cause that's the man I want to be. I don't want you to ever feel like you have to be the breadwinner, right? If you're making more, great. I'll help push you. I want to clear the path for you. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you grow, but I'm going to be double down as driven to be.
You can't let go of yours.
Right.
Yeah.
To be double down as driven to be more successful as a man. And I think a lot of people suffer in that and struggle in that. And I do think it's an insecurity, right? Do I think it was placed on men? Yeah, kind of. Right. I do. But at the end of the day, it is our job to adapt as men. And that's why the group you have is important, because the conversation isn't like, you know what, just be okay with it and accept it. And it's more like, okay, that's great, but what are you doing, right? How are you staying in your frame? What are you building? What are you focused on? And I tell guys this all the time, that this conversation around masculinity, femininity, and like how to attract women and not. Bro, you really want women? Like I tell you really want women? Like just go send it on your purpose and don't pay them no mind. That's how if you want to attract women, that's how you do it. Because women are attracted to that, right? They're like, oh my God, like that guy, he's locked in on his purpose. That is a primal fucking thing. It doesn't matter what you drive, what you wear. They can see it, they can smell it. It's
the healthy bad boy energy.
Yeah, it's
right?
the sixth sense.
It's the healthy masculine energy. Because like the toxic masculinity is like the bad boy. Like there's always a narrative like the girl's attracted to the bad boy,
right?
Because he's a rebel, right? He doesn't give a fuck. And it's the same thing, like energy that we need to tap in, but in a healthy way, right?
Right. In teaching, I've had to learn how to do that.
100%.
And because it's easy to be the bad boy in quote unquote fuck boy way. Mm-hmm. That's so simple. You know what I mean? Just be a dick. Yep. You know, but that's not being a good man. Nope. Being a good man looks a lot like having boundaries, and those boundaries aren't about, for me, it's not about protecting myself. It's about protecting my purpose. That's what I have boundaries around. I can take the hits,
your path, but
I'm going to protect my path at all costs. And I've lost that a couple times. And dude, getting back to that is hard. Yeah. Getting back to that space. But I tell men, like, just chase that, dude. That's all you got to worry about. And you'll be saying no more times than you ever dreamed you could say, yes.
Yep.
You're going to be giving out a lot of no's if you're really locked in on it.
Yeah.
The right person, I think, is going to be able to directly almost step into that with you and just be there. You're going to see it before you know it,
Yep.
right? Before you really feel it. And I think that, the quickest way to lose a woman, back to the comfort conversation, is to get comfortable. If you were in discomfort and you were pressing and pushing yourself and locked in on your purpose when you found this partner, the quickest way to lose her is to lean into her femininity and to not have the ability to say no and to always be available. That's how you lose her. You want to keep her? Keep pressing into that uncomfortable shit.
Yep.
Right? But that's the dynamics no one talks about anymore. Men are supposed to do that.
Yep.
We're supposed to be leaned into our purpose. And if we're not, we come off as weak, right? Or passive. And I think that, to your question, is correlated in male role models. Mm-hmm. And you look at the studies over the past, call it 50 years, the amount of divorce is just insane. That's one of the things I talk about to these kids. The first thing, I'm like, who in here's been, in or around a family that had divorce in it? And every fucking hand goes up.
It's wild.
Every kid. It's like, if it's not their parents, it's their uncle and aunt, but like every fucking kid. And it's like, instantly though, when I do those speeches, I have them because they're like, oh, he's about to talk about some real shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even kid understands, like, oh, I get to connect right now. He's not going to talk about Smokey the Bear and dare drugs. Like, he's going to talk about the shit that I'm living with.
Yep.
But I think, to wrap that up, and I know I just said a gazillion things because I've had 7,000 milligrams of caffeine today.
Fire it up, baby.
Here's what it really bleeds through for me, though. My mom, to raise me, had to become more masculine. She did the best she could, period. It is very difficult for a woman to be both of those things. They're not designed to be both of those things. And so being raised by a single mom, I think naturally you're going to lean more towards the soft side. At least, like, I think I am more towards that side. And I've had to develop this hard side. And the only way I've been able to develop is through suffering. That's it. Not through reading books. Not through nothing else. Is like, go out there and suffer. And like, that's my deal with myself. And it always comes back to this, and this sounds psychotic too, but it's the truth. If I want to hurt myself, and I mean like remove myself from this planet type hurt myself, I just go suffer for a little bit.
Yep.
And then I'm like, all right, well, I can do today. Yep. And so I've had to build that hardness, if you will, or that masculinity through suffering, because it wasn't my mom's job to ever teach me that. But she did the best she could. I think that that's a big problem, though, this broken home structure. Women are trying to teach young boys how to be men, and they're not equipped for that, dude. No. And I think that that's been the biggest, for me, the separator of like why men are the way men are now and women are the way women are now. And it's become this, it's almost become this cycle of, do you want me to be a man or do you want me to be soft? And knowing when to do which. And so for me, what it's kind of turned into, and this is why I say you want freedom, it's almost easier to just pick the masculine side, and not in a toxic way, but like help men. Stop trying to figure out partnership, right? Just stop trying to figure that shit out. The right one's going to come when they come. You talk about the divine timing, all that. I really believe that. But you don't create your own divine timing by saying now's the time. This is the one.
That's the toxic masculine. You trying to control the timeline.
100%. And you got to fully release it. And that's kind of the situation I've been in recently.
Same.
Where it's like, it made sense. We're supposed to be doing this. This is where we're at. These are the things we've said. These are the things we've shared. Why aren't we? Like, and there was so much pressure put on it of like, by me, of like, can we just like resolve this so that I can get back to what I need to be doing? But through that, I think that pressure created this uncertainty of like, what's the rush kind of thing. And we just pulled apart. right? Now we're in a space of like, I've just released it.
Yeah.
And I hate to say these words, but it's not like fuck it in a bad way. It's like, fuck it. Like I can no longer continue trying to control this because it's taken away from my purpose. If it's meant to be, it's going to happen. If it's not, it won't. But at the end of the day, I still have my purpose.
Because you're secure with who you are. Like if you weren't secure, then that would be you chasing that.
Yeah.
Because then that is your secureness, the relationship. If the relationship is going to keep you secure, anyone like that's you're not going to last.
Right.
I've like hit maybe this egotistical like thought process now, but I've with you like everything you said I deeply resonate with because like dating has been the first 5 years of being single. I was like it made sense. The last 3 years I'm like I've done all this growth, like it's time, like I need to find the girl that can build this empire with me, or that no, maybe I need to find the girl that's like she just believes in me so much and just wants to help me build the empire, or do I go down this like entrepreneur girl who's kind of inner masculine? Like I have like these internal battles within myself within dating, and then that even thought process of like feeling like wanting to, it gets in this chasing energy and me taking away from what the purpose that I'm supposed to be here, and that is scary too. It's like damn, like I want to have a very powerful relationship because I know I've done such a good job of myself and I've gone through so much struggle that I know I can show up as such a powerful man in relationship. And I want a woman to see that because I want to give that love.
Yes.
Like I'm ready to give that love because I've done it. Right. But like, even I can share this with my own vision with my life too. It's like, I have this vision of where I want to go, but there's so many divine timing. There's so many other players in their own worlds of what they're going through. Who am I to project what I want in my life onto someone else?
Yeah.
Whether it's a partner, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a community, like you had to, it's a level of like, yes, this is my fucking path and I'm not veering from this path. But within that path, there's other players that are going to be on that path. And how can I meet them where they're at? This is getting to a whole other thing, but I resonate with what you're sharing because that's been my own battle. Because I get in this very controlling sometimes energy. Because I believe so much in what I'm doing, and I believe so much in the people around me, and I want people to like, let's go, dude, what are we waiting for? Type energy. And then that in itself, you have to be very delicate in how you communicate that, because any type of forceful energy, it's just like Republican versus Democrat. It creates this force where it blocks people from actually receiving anything that you're actually saying if you come in with force.
Right.
If you come in with force, like it's immediately a wall. No matter if you're coming with some love and it's a good intention, immediately there's a wall that's brought up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to connect to that. Yeah.
No, that's real. And it's almost like it's difficult to really describe it in my own head, but it's what it comes back to is like, if you've done the work, and there's so much work left to be done.
The work don't stop.
It does not.
It's a never-ending journey.
I talked about this on the last podcast too.
Talked about it a couple weeks ago.
Just the work of like the unrelenting pressure of waking up knowing there's so much more to do can be overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
But having done the amount of work that I have done, and I don't mean this in a cocky or an arrogant way. I mean this in a very like general, specific way though. Like, I know my value, and it's not necessarily even in comparison to others. Like, fuck all that. That's fine. They got their own value. I know mine. I know what I can give. I know how much I can love. I know how I can lead. The hard thing for a man, I think, is when that doesn't feel seen. Right? And it's like, damn. Especially when you're able to have these deep conversations around previous partnerships with your partner, right? And talk about like, hey, like this is what this person did. I didn't like it. And this, work through all those dynamics. And a good man says, okay, as long as it doesn't hinder me from chasing my purpose, I can do those things. I can show up in that way. I can make sure you feel seen and that never happens again. And a good man will put direct effort into that. When it doesn't feel like it's reciprocated, that's where your value takes a hit for a second. Yeah. Of like, damn, all this work I've done, all this effort I'm putting in, and there's no fucks given. Yeah. Right? And they can say, well, I do see it and I do appreciate it. There's one thing about saying it, and there's another thing about reciprocating. Right? I'm a man of reciprocation. And I don't mean that like, I don't need a lot. But I've had this conversation with my therapist, even in a partnership. I don't need you to cook for me. I don't need you to clean for me. I don't need you to warm my car up. I don't need you to brush my teeth. I don't need you to make the bed. I don't need any of that. I got all that. I've been doing all that, right? And I have no problem stepping in and continuing to do all that if that's what it takes to build a good partnership. What I need is an understanding and appreciation of my effort. Mm-hmm. Because it's the addict in me, but if I give you my heart, I'm all fucking in, dude. Yeah. You got it. Take it. I'm not looking at anybody else. I don't give a shit about anybody. It doesn't matter. Yeah. That's where I'm locked in at. And so I think as a man, where we get twisted up sometimes, and I've had this conversation with so many close friends recently going through something very similar. We get in this space of like, why be a good man? Mm-hmm. What's the point? If the things that are really like what I hope and dream to have, like a wife and a family, if being a good man isn't getting me closer to that, right? Because we go through times in life where that's what it feels like. Why do it? Why not just be a fuckboy and, you know, treat a woman not that great and she'll love to marry you? You know what I mean? But I have to tell them that, like, and I have to tell myself this too. I'm speaking to myself just as much. Yep. But it's kind of like look in the mirror and be like, dude, I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than to ever have to question my value because of someone else. Yep. Fuck that.
That's the man in the rain right there, baby.
Fuck that. Never again. Never again. Yep. I built this with God. Period. God pulled me out, man. I was in the trenches. 312 pounds, looking in the mirror, coke addict, alcoholic.
312.
Yeah. Binge eater, all the issues. God pulled me out of that, man. 14 months later, I'm 205, doing an Ironman, full one. Run a 100-miler 2 months ago. Let's go. God did that, man. So you have to remind yourself, no one has that power to take that value. Nobody. But as men, even strong men, there are instances in our life that still happens. And it's like, fuck, am I really not worthy? Am I not valuable? Am I not a good man? Did I not do enough? And it's, again, you have to remind yourself in those moments, like, was I perfect? Fuck no. Like, I'm sure I wasn't. But was I a good man? Yes, I was. And dude, once I wrapped my hands around that, I can sleep. Yep. Because I was a good man. So I tell men, just keep being a good man. Yep. Yes, all that shit will hurt. Yes, it'll be tough. It'll be confusing, triggering. You're going to struggle for a bit. But if you are a bad man in that circumstance, it's tenfold. Yep. Because then you're beating the shit out of yourself. If you were a good man, you got that. That's the cookie for the cookie jar, man. Good job. Next. You know what I mean? This
is where like the rites of passages become powerful, because a lot of young men don't know what that means. They don't know what being a good man means. Yeah. They have no perspective of what that means. Because now, even on a more powerful note, I love social media personally in terms of, but it's a war on attention, right? There's going to be the bad and the good with that. And I share that because as I continue to sit with this whole rites of passage thing, I love the idea of a long-term plan of like being able to help kids and help young men like tap into this rites of passage. But for now, the work of men right now in the 20s to 50s, something that an organization that we partner with is Angie's Angels. And they take, angels are various kids, adults that have health conditions that can't run. So Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, different health conditions, and they find runners like ourselves to push them in the race. I'll be pushing for the full marathon coming up for Austin. CJ, CJ, him as well. And then we have a good squad of guys. And the reason that this came up for me is because you said the good man thing, and I think what was coming up is like do the right thing. Yep. And I think, again, that's not something that is conditioned, because I've had this conversation with a friend in the past. It's like, it's not easy being a good man. It's easier being a bad man. And I'm like, for me, that's mind-boggling. I'm so detached from that viewpoint that's mind-boggling. But that is a perspective that is there, that is probably there for a lot of people. And that it gets back to the men who just had not done the work. And when we, this past October, Ainsley, they have like, it's a national organization. They have their own sanctioned race as well. And we did a 5K where it was just everyone, there's a bunch of people from all over Texas and probably outside of Texas that were pushing. We had a crew. It was really cool for the guys because we had like 12 guys. We traveled in the van together. It was like sports. Traveled in the van together, stayed in the Airbnb outside of Houston together, and then competed, but pushed for a 5K. And on the way down, I interviewed everyone, and I wanted to kind of set the tone of like the questions, and I shared some different, Gandhi quote of like, find yourself by losing yourself in the service of others. It's one of my favorite quotes. And a couple other quotes I can't recall at this very moment in time. But then we just went down this questioning, what does it mean to do the right thing? And just and people would share their different stories around that. And I wanted to set the tone of that energy for that, because inherently we were doing a very good thing, right? And I wanted people to be in that and like really appreciate that, because it's very easy just like, oh, like I'm just doing this. It's about them and the people that were pushing. But I selfishly want this for the men to do this, because especially as athletes, in a world where we're constantly comparing to, it's like next PR. I got to hit this time, performance, climb the corporate ladder, all these different freaking things that are all success metrics that are giving us value that's not real. Right? We're attaching values to these different things that aren't real. So I wanted to create, I guess, a form of rite of passage for men to be able, as athletes, to push and completely let go of any time-based thing and just be there in service of someone else. Be there and allow them to be the hero of the story. Be there and do the right thing and not need it to be anything other than that. And I think that's the type of stuff that fires me up, is creating opportunities for men to discover within themselves what their purpose is. Because, something you said earlier that really hit me. We did our first podcast with Men in the Arena a couple months ago. And one thing that I said at the end is like, if we can do anything right with this men's group, I said it was just like a flow. We were flowing the conversation. We didn't really plan anything. We were just flowing. I never talked about what I said, but it was there. I was like, if we can do anything right, is help one man find their purpose. And that's what you said at the beginning. It's like, I don't know if that's not your like core statement, but
it is. That
is what I believe in. And I think that it takes being around other men sometimes to unlock some of that. If we want to get to a practical standpoint of like someone asking, how do I find my purpose? For sure, you need to go chase struggle, but find the struggle that's from like a voice that's coming from within, God or whoever you want to attach value to, that is telling you to go do this thing. Go freaking do it and go all in on it. Fail, lose, get knocked down, learn from it. Maybe it's something you want to continue to go down the path. Maybe it was podcasting, and then you decided you did podcasting. It wasn't your thing. That's okay. Or maybe it is your thing. Not freaking stick with it. And then the other thing is like knowing that, hey, there's probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 men just in your area, potentially depending on where you live. Maybe there's just one that wants to do that same fucking thing. And then go do it. Go do it together. That's what I'm trying to portray, because it can get kind of like, again, back to individualism. And I've had to do a lot of things by myself, and I'll continue to take new challenges by myself. But I want to create as many opportunities for other men who are held back from taking that step by themselves to know that there's someone else that can support them.
Yeah.
Because Together We Rise is the slogan that I want to embody as Men in the Arena. The more that we can do things together, because by design we were supposed to. You spoke earlier around the vulnerability piece being the number one thing. I completely agree. But what's crazy, and I think this is a great perspective choice, like our change of how to look at things, we are constantly comparing ourselves to the men around us. Like I can like look at you as an athlete and size you up this man, or as a speaker, I'm like, man, you have a great speaking voice. Like I want your voice. I want to be able to project that way. You have an amazing voice. But that's from a healthy, I can like also judge it like, damn, why isn't my voice like yours? Yeah. Right. And I think just being able to share that now, have that open conversation, that I had that thought came in. Yeah. It's real. Like there's no judgment or anything towards it. I'm like, dude, this dude has a dope voice. I like it. You should be speaking. Yeah. You're leaning into your power. But that dialogue is happening all the time, and we're not expressing it, and that becomes this like energy where now it's like a judgment. Now we're like sizing each other. Now it's unhealthy masculinity or unhealthy competition.
Right.
Where I'm trying to beat you. I'm going to beat you down, and it's like where like the bro culture can be in like the locker room talk. That can be like the fun banter, but also like pushing people down type energy.
For sure.
And I don't want that in my life whatsoever. But I share that all to say it's like by design, we are always sizing other men up. Like, and I want to say that, like, that's happening consistently. And just being able to vulnerable to express that, like, hey, yo, and recognize that and lead with love and like express energy towards that. That's positive. It allows us not to hold on to any bullshit that's inside of us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love all of that. And I want to talk about that last piece. But first, I want to talk about something else you said that sticks with me. And it's something that I say all the time. There's a big difference between simple and easy. Being a good man is very simple, but it is not easy. And I think at the root of that question, I wanted to ask you this too. And I'm sure we'll get sidetracked on this conversation for sure.
I love it.
If I had to name 3 core characteristics of a good man, I think I would lead with integrity. That'd be my 1. I think I would go servanthood 2. And I think 3 would be vulnerability. And I think that they kind of all work together in different ways. But those are the 3 things that I'm trying to lean into heavy. When it sucks, when I don't want to do the right thing, that's exactly what I need to do. No matter how painful it is, I need to look at it right in the face and be like, I'm here. This is the right thing. Go fuck yourself. You know? The servanthood piece. You hit on this earlier. You want to find yourself, as the Gandhi quote, you want to find yourself, lose yourself in serving others, right? That's the truth. That is the absolute truth. And people out there that might be struggling, get out of yourself just for a minute. Go find a kid shooting basketball. If you're a creepier, older looking dude, don't do this, please. But you can go meet people and be nice to people or just say hello to people. I tell people all the time, if you're in Austin, you're struggling with servanthood, dude, just go walk the streets and say hi to homeless people. Just say hi. I dare you to sit down and have a conversation with them. You'd be shocked. You probably said, dude, it's happened numerous times. Say hi, how's it going? Next thing you know, I'm there 30 minutes. Just listening. Because you pick up really quick, like, man, this person just wanted to fucking talk to somebody, maybe for the last 5 months, who knows? And no one has sat down and heard them. Yeah. So servanthood's big. And then that last piece, the vulnerability piece, we've already nailed on that a million times. I think that is so critical to being a good man. So those would be my 3. If you had to name 3, and not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
What are your 3, man?
I think the first one that always comes up with me, and this kind of plays into integrity, is authentic.
Okay.
And authentic for me is always being in alignment with self, and alignment with values. So integrity, being so like attached to those, and allowing that to be the filtration system when anything comes through your life, whether it's deciding whether I want to be good or bad, or whether I want to step up or go the other direction, like allowing that to be the filter of my values, being authentic. So I think that's like the number 1 and deep-rooted one. From there, like I mean, I align with what you're sharing. Like honestly, like the servicehood one to me, obviously I told you I identify as a community builder, so my entire life is going to be of service for the rest of my life. I've already accepted that, and a part of that is with Men in the Arena, but also, started with Squatch in the early days of Squatch and still to this day, and then now with High Rocks. And I want to continue to be of service and be able to highlight other people's stories. So I know the power of service, and I know with the Gandhi quote, like when other men can do that, like, yeah, there's so many opportunities to be of service. And I shared this the other day in our men's group, is like, we all have this thought of wanting to do more. It could be service. It could be a better partner. It could be whatever that is, but we're not taking action. So this gets to the third one: be a man of action. Action. Because I think the vulnerability piece I love, and I think it's very important. But yeah, I don't want to narrow it down to 3, but I'll say, like, men of action to me is very important. Yeah. Because if you're not taking action on these thoughts or doing these things, then you're just living this cycle, and then we're getting to this passive existence, which is what we've created over the past like 40 years, 60 years, and we're not tapping into the what's inside of us, the greatness that's inside of us.
Right.
I've had a lot of conversations and I've been in a lot of different men's groups and outside of my own men's group, and there's this innate feeling of wanting to be great. And the way I kind of reframe that, like over the years, is like, I don't want to be great. I want to do great. I want to be great for others. Right. And that's where it gets back to the service, and kind of detaching my own ego to a sense, because ego is a part of us. It's not going anywhere. I had a good conversation with a friend the other day. I don't want to go too much on a tangent here, but it's a constant dance with ego. You can call it a fight, call it a dance. I like calling it a dance. And it's not going to go anywhere. So you're always, like, I share that because it's all adds layers to the context of there's always going to be struggle. There's always going to be these different things, because ego wants to pull us out of ego plays into our fears, into our insecurities, into our discomforts, and it wants to challenge us. It's like this constant it's the battle inside of us, right? It's the war inside of us. That's our ego versus self, not to get too much in psychology, but, if you don't have a healthy relationship with that, then things can get muffled inside of us.
Right.
Right. If you don't have a healthy relationship with self, and that's where the inner work comes in discovery, you're able to kind of detach too much from like a thought that comes in or emotion or feeling that comes in. And you'll be able to, this is my fear, insecurity, or whatever coming through. That's my ego challenge me in this moment. And like, do I want to step up to the challenge, or do I want to shy away from the challenge? So to answer your question, long-winded, authentic, men of action, men of purpose, like men of action. And then I'm now forgetting what the second one I said.
So it was authenticity.
Service. Yeah.
So I'm going to take this a different direction.
Cool. Let's do it.
I've never asked this question, but I kind of want both of us, if possible, to answer it.
Cool.
What is your deepest rooted, like, insecurity that you still deal with?
Yeah, a few came up, so I want to go to the deepest rooted. Well, what's interesting, I think, I'm going to pre-context this, that I think our deepest insecurities are our biggest also, like, guideposts towards what we're supposed to lean more into. So I think my biggest insecurity is feeling seen. And valued, and I think that I don't want to generalize to other people, but my own journey, with parents that weren't together and things like that, and like not feeling maybe seen, and then throughout life, that I now have used that deepest insecurity as my North Star.
Yeah.
And like this is a form of that, right? For you, probably like being able to see others and hold a conversation. So to me, as a content creator, and anytime the past couple of years, I've gone through this shift of kind of getting pulled out of being authentic and chasing like the growing the brand and the algorithm shit and a bunch of bullshit that got me out of self, and then put me in this place where like I'm just gonna be done creating for a little bit. I just need to detach for a little bit, and that started eating me up, because I know I have so much that I want to do to the world outside of my own ego of what I want to present and how I want to grow my brand, but I know the good that's going to come from the things that I want to do, and the ripple effect that can happen. So it's a disservice for me not to tap into that. So I think to add to the deep root, the untapped potentials of something that real men face every single day. And when you don't tap into that full potential, it's going to start eating away. So 3-part answer, like the deepest root is feeling seen. I use that as a drive to feel my purpose. Because I don't want to not live up to my fullest potential.
Yeah, I love that. Hate to say this, but same.
Yeah.
Same. And I think it's rooted in a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
What I'm getting to, and it's still work in progress. Like I'm not there, but what I'm really trying to get to is like, bro, see yourself.
Yeah.
You want others to see or feel your impact. They never will until you do, right? And I think it's when we get caught in this pursuit of like what others think or how they feel about us, we lose ourselves completely. And it's almost like, no not in an arrogant way, not even an egotistical way, but it's okay to look in the mirror as a man and be like, this is what I did today. Good. This is how I was a good man today. This is how I showed up with integrity. This is how I showed up with servanthood, right? This is how I showed up with XYZ, whatever the thing is. But I think being seen, and it's definitely rooted in childhood for me, is so important. Because what I've realized as I've moved through this life, most of the time, people that get a lot of acknowledgement, right? Most of the time, it's because I believe the people around them are used to them doing so little. So when they do something, it's this magnificent, outpouring of celebration of like, wow, you're so incredible. I'm here to tell you, man, if you're chasing that dragon every day where you're really pushing the envelope and you're doing good shit all the time, people get used to that.
Yeah, I'm resonating.
People get used to that, dude. And then you don't feel as seen because people aren't giving you that same praise anymore. Yeah. They're like, no, that's just Trip.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not, there's no malintent there. It's just this understanding of like, bro, that's who you are. You want to shock them, do some stupid shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why I keep going back to like, bro, if you're really on this journey, you're really pressing in, you're really going for it, you have to be able to see yourself. You have to be able to see yourself. Because if you're doing it for praise, that shit fizzles out because you're winning every day.
100%.
And I have to tell guys this, I have to tell myself this, like, and this funnels into relationships, dude. Like romantic relationships. Like if you're showing up as a good man every day, like you're doing the best you can to show up as like this person who deeply cares and tries to clear the path in a very masculine way so that a woman can lean into her femininity, but also like her entrepreneurial side if she wants. If you're really clearing that path, dude, at some point, it's not going to be appreciated the same. Mm-hmm. It's just not. That's human nature. Yeah. Whereas if like I didn't show up in that way and I kind of was hot and cold and, didn't show up to support, and then randomly one day I show up with flowers, holy shit, he's amazing, No. And don't get lost in that, right? I've been lost in that. Do all the right shit anyways. And if it goes unseen, maybe there's something to look at there, right? Maybe you're not on the same path. And that's okay. Because I believe if someone's truthfully on your path, the only way to know it is through consistency. Yep. And you could say a lot of things about me. I'm deeply consistent. Pull up the last 5 years. You can go to my Garmin, my Strava, my therapy accounts, my faith, whatever you want to look at. Go pull the receipts. That's consistency. It's built, right? A lot of people can show up a certain way for a month, 2 months, 3 months. But not everybody's meant to be on that same path for the duration of their life. You know what I'm saying? So see yourself. Understand who you are. Understand that if you've put in consistency for this amount of time, you're not going to align with everybody and everything. It just ain't going to mesh. And so, yeah, I say all that to say that has always been my deepest insecurity. And that is my greatest work now, though, to your point. Yep. Like, that's what I have to face. And it's like, bro, see yourself. God sees you. He kept you here. Look at your life now. Look at what it was 5 years ago and then look at it now. Tell me you're not seen. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to reset yourself that way. But I've struggled with that same thing deeply. So I'm glad.
Dude, I love it. I want to share a quick internal dialogue. Yeah. Before that, that's why earlier, I forget exactly what you shared, but I was like, I see you. I just want to acknowledge that because that's something that I want to continue to be better because that's something that I want at some level too, selfishly. But I know when I can redirect that energy, like that's me taking me out of myself and what I need to be able to give to others because I know other men are also facing the same thing. It's so interesting from like internal dialogue because this is where the growth comes from. And maybe someone else can resonate with this as well. And I completely agree. Like this is where my growth, especially this past year, of really needing to not have any other external validation and just so believing in what I'm stepping into. My word for this year or this month has been embody. And like, cause I can go through all these different things of like different patterns of self-sabotage for so long as an entrepreneur, going back to these different coping mechanisms, masturbation, nicotine, binge eating, all these different things. I'm doing a dry January right now where I'm doing none of that. And it's been like, I already knew once I get detached from that, like the level of growth I'm going to have. And it's exciting because when you're not numbing things and you've already done all this work, like the path to be fucking so rooted in your path, or maybe the ease to be so rooted in your path becomes a lot easier. Mm-hmm. When you're escaping and numbing different things, anytime a little obstacle or roadblock comes in the way, that's when you can get really lost off the path. So I'm excited personally because I want to share internal dialogue, because in the past, like I've met I have so many friends that have blown up on social media over the past 5 years. Mm. We live in Austin. I have a lot of close friends. I can name Matt Johnson, Matt Troy. Like I knew them all before they blown up, and other people as well. And then I get this internal complex of like, why not me? I'm putting out this value. I'm doing these things. Why am I? And like that energy not only is it unhealthy for myself and what I'm creating, but that's actually blocking me from actually receiving any of what I want. Because like I am the person who needs to validate myself. Mm-hmm. No one else is going to do that. And by me not validating myself, it's a disservice to self. A disservice to self is creating this ripple of energy around me that the universe is not going to give me what I need, because I have more work to do. That's how I see it, right? And I know you resonate with this, and but the other thing you said that I haven't heard anyone else say that I feel really seen right now is around friends around me. Because men in the arena, I've had so many young men come through and like step into different things, and then they'll post on social media and like the love and all this stuff. I'm like, that's dope. And I've thought, like, I post some shit, I'm just like, it's expected at this point.
Yep. It's
expected at this point. And you know what? That's cool. Not like looking back and who I'm embodying, like I'm glad that I have set that example and done so much work, because it comes out in different ways. It comes out in the right time when I need to hear it, where men was like, thank you. Thank you for this. Like, thank you for doing that. And like for me to want to consistently have that, if I'm chasing that, as you said, that's a losing fucking battle.
Yeah.
I'm at peace knowing that I've gone through so much adversity and trials and tribulation that were self-induced for the most part, that now I could stand here today and be so rooted in who I am and not escape to different coping mechanisms. And now there could be a very dramatic thing in my life that could spiral me, like losing a close friend or parent. That's always possible. That's the thing that people don't understand. Like I could go tomorrow, something could fucking happen, and I'm going back into the weeds of things. That's how close we live on the edge, right? And I just want to acknowledge that. Like, just because we can stand here confidently and express this thing doesn't mean that I don't got more work to do for the rest of my life. But yeah, I wanted to.
No, it's all real shit, man. The thing that kept popping in my head when you were talking about that too, about this expectation of celebration for doing the right thing, and I've deeply struggled with it too. Where I'm getting to though is like, you talk about social media platforms blowing up too. When Matt Johnson coaches me in running, I genuinely believe the reason he's blown up is because he doesn't give a fuck about what anyone else is doing.
Yeah.
That's his content. That's what I see, right? And so I think that he's not, at least the conversations I've had with him, he's not worried about like what this guy's doing or this girl's. He's like just doing his shit. And I think that that's helped him a lot because people can connect with that, right? It doesn't feel like it's forced into a box. But the other thing I'll say around, expectation of celebration for doing the right thing, I had this moment last week where I was like, I was playing the comparison game. I'm going to keep it all the way real. And I was like, yeah, but like this dude that I'd heard about only did this, and he kind of showed up like a piece of shit, and he had a drinking problem, and this, and then this guy, and then this guy cheated, and what the fuck? I was the opposite of all that. But you would hear these moments of like they would get super celebrated for this one little thing, right, that I was doing consistently. And I just had to come to this realization, like, bro, their celebration is your standard. Period. That's your standard. And so that's what I say when things don't always mesh, right? If someone's used to being treated that way and riding this, then, and they haven't done the work, that's what they're looking for. If you provide this, it's going to be uncomfortable. They're not going to know what to do or how to show up in that. And so don't change your standard though, right? And I tell men this, because I've had this inner dialogue a million times. Again, it's easier to fall back into this, like, I'll just be a dick. I'll just be a bag of shit. Like, that works for me. That gets lots of attention.
It gets attention, yeah.
Yeah. And if that's what you're seeking, great. It's not fulfilling, though. Fulfillment, I think, comes from not attention, but consistency. Like knowing your foundation is set solid stone. The world can crumble. My foundation's still there. Any man can rebuild from a solid foundation. Any man. But if your foundation is built on weak soil, right? Or your concrete doesn't have enough rebar in it, however you want to shake that analogy, world comes crumbling down. Guess what? Your foundation's still broken and you're still building from a broken place, right? So I think it's so important to not just recognize that, but if there's a brokenness inside of you, and we're all broken in different ways, it's so important to go address that and understand that that's rooted in you first, not anyone else. Mm-hmm. Fix you, work on you, deal with you. Because if you try to work through those things because we're all broken and another human's trying to work through those things at the same time, dude, it's fucking hard. You just mirror each other essentially and project.
A thought that came in earlier that I forgot to share. It's like, and this where it might sound egotistical. I don't see me ever having a divorce.
Yeah.
Because like I just can't imagine myself in a situation that it would get to that.
Right.
And that maybe I'm not someone who's going to get married. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I can't picture like a relationship going, like if I'm committed, like to going to that. People separate, but like I don't, and I guess let me re-choose my words. A dirty, just like ugly divorce. Mm-hmm. Like people like from like can decide. I don't think we're just destined potentially to be with the same person your whole entire life, just because people change, evolve. I don't put a lot of value to that, but I think there's potential truth there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to put value. I want to be like you, all committed to that one person. But I share that all because it comes back to doing all the work. And if you're broken and you're going to these different relationships, escaping these relationships, the divorces are only going to keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking.
Yeah, it's cyclical.
Yeah,
it is. And if you look at in partnership especially, and I've been slapped in the face with this a few times. Like, you look at someone's track record, and it's like 8, 10 serious 1-year relationships.
Yeah.
And then you look at the people that they were with, and they've, for the most part, moved on, or they're married, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I have buddies like that, and it's like, bro, I'm not saying you're the problem, but maybe there's something there. Yeah. Right? Just look at the history. If you're tired of the cycle, change something.
Break the pattern.
Right? It could either be yourself or who you pick. Right? I don't know what the issue is, but you have to be able to look at it if you want change. And I think that we get caught up in that in society because, dude, when you're 34, I'm 34, it sounds like you're 32. Yep. To meet a woman from the ages of 25 to 30 that hasn't been through some like deep-rooted trauma, right? And a male who's 34 who hasn't been through some form of deep-rooted trauma, that isn't married or divorced with kids, I don't know if it's out there, right? So meaning like when we're young, it's a lot different. Yeah. But from 18 to 24, a lot of shit happens, man. And a lot of brokenness occurs. And so I think the important part, and I tell them this too, like find someone who's not just willing to work on the relationship, but really all in on working on themselves, right? Because it doesn't matter how hard they work for this partnership if they're not willing to evolve themselves.
Well, with that though, I think the rooted masculinity, the men guide that.
Yes.
Like women need to be open. Like I don't want to say need to be anything.
Right.
I would hope women would want to be open
to grow.
That dynamic to grow.
Yeah.
But from my positioning, and it gets tough because if we get into the whole breadwinner thing and like that energy dynamic and polarity, and it gets tough, and like that's why we're in this new age that's challenging. I don't want to that's a whole nother conversation, I feel like. But I do think the masculine force in the relationship that controls that dynamic
right.
of continued growth.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you either kind of get on board or you get gone.
Yeah.
You know, because a man of standards is not going to allow it.
Yeah.
If you're in your frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, I'm doing all this work. I'm growing. What's happening here?
100%.
That kind of conversation. But we've definitely ran over, which was not, that was easy. That was easy to do with you. I've loved it, man.
Yeah, same, brother.
I've loved this conversation. It's been good for me.
Same.
I hope it's been good for the audience. I'm sure somebody out there is going to connect with things you were saying and be able to kind of not just resonate, but grow from them and give them a path or understanding that, again, the whole concept of this show is to show people they're not alone.
Amen.
So, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to continuing this friendship, if you will, and growing it.
Absolutely.
I think there's some stuff to unfold here.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, Trip.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you, and that's going to do it for today's episode of the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. Thanks for tagging along.
Let's go. Hell yeah, my man.